Hi and welcome to your Connect group. It's fantastic to be here together for our theme of relational wholeness. And I am delighted to be joined by Alison Tinsley. Hi Alison.
Hello.
Alison is a relational counsellor and therapist. She works for Relate and within her own private practice. She's been working for 10 years in that field and has loads of experience working with people, with individuals and within relationships. So really good to have you with us today.
Thank you.
So I'd love to share a little bit about your journey to relational wholeness, your testimony of where you've been and where you are now and how it informs your practice and what you do.
Well, I've quite a story to tell. I'll be as brief as I can. So on a personal level, I got married at 20. I'd been a Christian since the age of 10. Got married, had every intention of it working. Nowhere on my radar was it that it wouldn't work. And for many years we were very happy, had 2 children. I was a nurse. And then things began to change, let's say. And as a result, I made some poor choices. My contribution was... my contribution ultimately meant the relationship ended. And I ended up as a single mum at 32, 33 with 2 young children. That was not what I envisaged at all when I got married. And as a result, it broke me, essentially. And I was devastated and ended up in this place where it was like, how on earth have I got here? How has this happened? Why have I made these choices? And God took me on this amazing journey of self-discovery. It was only actually about 5 months, but the work God did with me in that time was incredible. And I didn't just go back to who I was. I came out as a different person. We talk about God refining us like gold in the fire. Well, I came out like this very shiny piece of gold, and it was quite remarkable. And shortly after that, actually, I met the man that many of you may have met, who is my husband, and we've been married 23 years this year, I think. And very happily so, and we've been on a journey together. Some years after we were married, I began to develop a passion for other people and their relationships. Right. Because of what had happened to me, thinking I'm a Christian, I'll be all right. Clearly, that wasn't enough. So I decided, how can I work with this passion? Prayed about it. I'd done some developing along the way. I'd done a coaching diploma. I trained as an image consultant. I was very keen on the link between self-esteem, confidence on the outside and how that impacts the inside. And ultimately, I decided I wanted to train as a relationship therapist and did a master's degree in relationship therapy through Relate and Hull University. And so there's been no looking back from there. So I've been able to combine my passion for people and their relationships in a professional capacity.
What a powerful story of how God redeems all things. Does it feel like a really redemptive story for you?
It does indeed. And I thought it had finished some years ago in a sense, but God had other ideas. So some of you will know I absolutely adore the Queen. And last year, my manager at Relate nominated me to go to a royal garden party.
Wow, at Buckingham Palace?
At Buckingham Palace. So last year in May, Paul and I were very fortunate and were able to go to one of the garden parties.
Amazing.
I finally have a photograph with me and the Queen in shot. She isn't talking with me, but she is in shot. And it was as if God was saying, Alison, I know the journey you've been on. I know how broken you were. And I love you so much, and my grace is so sufficient. Your dream will come true.
Oh, I love that.
And that was last year. So God's best for us is endless, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just goes on and on and on.
Absolutely. Like you said, I thought this redemptive process had finished, but it doesn't, does it? It just continues out of his goodness and his kindness. So you've really been through the fire, it seems, with your own journey to relational wholeness.
Absolutely. Not a journey I would have chosen.
So it sometimes works that way, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And now to see you taking responsibility and having a real passion towards other people's relational wholeness. And over those years, you must have seen it all, counselling individuals and couples. And I'd love it if you could just discuss whether you see kind of a common thread or something that, as you work together with Jesus to bring out relational wholeness in other people, is there a common thread that you see people struggling with regards to that area?
There's all sorts of reasons, really, why couples come for counselling. Often it's because communication isn't working at all. There's a real breakdown in communication. One of the biggest things I do with people is helping them to listen. We talk about communication. People think that's around talking. That's actually a tiny part of it, and most of us are really poor at listening. We're too busy thinking about what our response is going to be, what we're going to say next, or arguing, or going into defensive mode. So listening and learning how to communicate, not just with words, but with our body language, our tone of voice, all of those things. Another one is time. So many people come to me and we'll look at what's going on in their lives, the context of the life. The relationship slipped to the bottom of the pile. Life's got in the way. Work, family, church even, it's all just got in the way, and then they're wondering why it's not working. So communication is a big one. Time is a big one. Unmet expectations. So when people get together in a relationship, often they have expectations, hopes, dreams of how it's going to be, but they don't really talk about it, and then find the other person doesn't actually meet those expectations, and so that leads to lots of problems. So probably those three are perhaps the biggest threads, common denominators of why people come.
And I guess when we talk about relational wholeness, we're not just talking about couples, are we? It's not just in that level of relationship, whether a marriage or an intimate relationship. We're talking about relational wholeness with families, with work colleagues, with parents, and humanity, really, isn't it? Humans being able to relate to other humans. Absolutely.
And even from singleness and being whole through to the community we live in. On the last Bare Essentials course I did, which is for singles and couples but who aren't yet in a serious relationship, one of the questions, it was so intelligent, it was, but can I be whole as a single person?
Great,
and it was of course you can be whole, and actually it's healthy to be whole as an individual before getting involved with someone else. For me, in relationships, two halves don't make a whole. You're much better coming into a relationship as a whole, well put together person, rather than relying or hoping the other person is going to do it for you. So whether it's singleness through to couple, family, wider family, friends, community, it all, the wholeness all plays a part.
And I'd love to just chat a little bit about how your faith informs your practice. I love that our church is full of people who are going out and taking the kingdom into their workplace. I just really affirm that. But how then does your faith inform who you are as a relationship counsellor?
I suppose because of my own journey of being very broken and God putting me... it didn't even put me back together. That's not the right phrase. Just restored and made whole. I get it. I don't sit there as the expert. I think sometimes clients want me to be, but I sit there as somebody who has been through not necessarily the same, but I understand what it is to feel like life's either falling apart or something's not working or there's a problem. And so I just sit there and I pray on a morning, God, just use me, just help me put my finger on whatever the problem is, just help us, me and the client, to identify whatever we need to identify. And so it's a team effort.
I love that, team effort, you and God working together.
And the client, even if they don't know.
Great.
So there's this sense of team, of togetherness. And sometimes I can remember, sometimes I'll be sitting there, I'll just be having a think, but the person doesn't know. I'll be like, right, okay. Where do we go now?
So you're in conversation with God whilst you're in conversation with the client. Okay.
And they just think I'm having a pause.
Okay. I love that. So God's really firmly in your workplace.
Yes.
And I love it. So I love that God's plan for his people is wholeness, for us to be whole people. You mentioned it earlier, and that relationships are important, aren't they, with ourselves, with others.
Definitely.
And with God. And obviously you must feel passionate about that in order to do your job. But if you were going to give people advice, obviously that's your job, isn't it? To listen to people and to kind of steer them in the right direction. What would you say to people who would love to see a greater level of relational wholeness in their lives?
Well, in terms of couples, we'll start with couples first of all. The key often is this business of listening well, listening attentively, trying to understand what the other person is saying, and often then reflecting back what you've heard. The number of times I get people where there's just been a complete mix-up and what was said isn't what was actually heard.
Also miscommunication between people.
Absolutely, that's huge. So in terms of tips, learning to listen and then check back. Oh, so if I've got this right, is that what you said? Have I heard you correctly? So you're actually talking about the same thing. That's huge on so many levels. So that's not just couples, that's any communication with anyone. Again, in terms of couples, the time spent in a relationship. So I think of not having a priority list that's rigid. I think of a flexible one, so that everything in your life at some point in the day gets to be the top of the list. So many people say, oh yes, but the children are at the top of the list all the time. And I go, well, why are they at the top of the list all the time? What about everything else? And so every day, so whether it's that even in a busy life, Give your husband, your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, give them a little kiss, give them a little hug, squeeze the hand, squeeze the bottom. I don't know. Connect with them in a simple way. Yeah. Send a text, put a kiss on it. Little small things. Speak kindly. God is underpinning all of it or central to it, but at the same time with a mindful approach, when so whether it's the relationship or whether it's our time with God, when we give it our full attention, so much more is gained and given.
Great. Love that.
And we can still talk to God throughout the day, and even in that moment the full attention is there, so much more is gained and given. But when we're sort of flapping about trying to fit it all in, nothing is getting full attention.
Yeah, so I wonder, with that greatest command of loving God, loving ourselves and loving others, that there needs to be, for relational wholeness, this opportunity for us to give God our full attention, ourselves some full attention, and others that we're in relationship with some full attention. But not all
at the same time, necessarily.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
But everything gets what it needs in its order.
Yeah. And for those of us that might not be in romantic relationships or married, would it be similar advice?
Well, in a way, yes, because then friends take on a greater role, or family members. So it's so important then that we're doing life with other people, we've got support when we need it, and we can support others, that we can share appropriately. There needs to be wisdom with what we share and with whom and when. But we all need people in our lives that we can go to, and that we can be there for other people too.
And would you, I know we mentioned islands earlier, but would you agree with the statement that no man or woman is an island, that we are designed to have healthy relationships with one another?
I think so, but what that might look like for one person might be different to someone else. So someone might want and need to spend an awful lot of time with other people, whether it's their partner, a family member, or a friend, and certainly if any of the viewers have watched or done the love languages, time is one of the love languages. So if that's your love language, then to that person, that's going to be even more important than someone else. So to a lesser or greater degree, yes, we need people in our lives. But it's okay to ask for that, and it's okay to actually say no as well. If so, many of us, we're very busy, we get burnt out. Sometimes when our tank needs filling, that's not the time to be trying to support someone. So it might be, actually, I'm not able to do that now, and signpost elsewhere. And then when we've more fuel in our tank, then we can give again.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for the amazing work that you do with helping people walk into relational wholeness. And I think doing that as a great therapist is one thing, but doing that as a great therapist that loves Jesus and knows his redemptive plan for relationships is really powerful. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Hopefully you're really enjoying this series, and we look forward to seeing you next week for the next theme in our wholeness series. Have a fantastic week.